Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of 30 West Pilot. I am a 777 pilot and instructor. I've been flight simming for probably the better half of 15 years. And this is our first video with the channel, so thank you guys for being here. Thanks for watching. Bear with us as we might have a few setbacks here and there as it is our first video. But we'll try to make it a great experience and entertaining, educational, all at the same time. Today's flight, we have Delta Airlines. We're flying with Delta Virtual Airlines today, going from Atlanta down to Jacksonville. So pretty quick flight in the Flight Factor Boeing 757-200. We are on Xplane 12. I know that a lot of people have moved over to Microsoft Flight Sim, and we'll be doing a lot of Microsoft Flight Sim videos as well. However, since we don't have a couple of the iconic aircraft in Microsoft Flight Sim yet, being the 757, 767, my personal favorite, the 727, and some of the others, we'll kind of be hopping back and forth between the different simulators so that we can kind of get a all around. And of course, when PMDG releases my airplane, the 777, we'll be spending a whole lot of time on Microsoft Flight Sim, going through about everything that there is to go to on the 777. So if this sounds good to you and it's something that you want to see, we'd appreciate if you'd like and subscribe. That way you can stay up to date with all of our videos as we get this channel going. Alright, without further ado, we're going to jump in the cockpit here and get started. This is simulating the first flight of the day, so everything's powered down. Nothing has started yet, so we're going to jump in a completely cold and dark aircraft. Now, when we get in here, we would have checked all of the documents, all the safety equipment, checked the observers, oxygen, all of our other safety equipment here, documents, make sure we got all of our legal requirements. See, we want to go to the overhead here and make sure that it's set up properly before we put power on the aircraft. So usually some of these things are already set now. Flight Factor doesn't have them set. Like the engine hydraulic pumps always stay on. Obviously they're not going to be functioning when the engines aren't on, but they stay on. Same with like the utility buses, the bus ties, and the generator connectors. Those all stay on. All these are usually on as well. And I want to make sure, I actually probably should have gone down the panel and just gone every one. So I think this usually stays here. Okay, we're not going to put power on the aircraft yet. These look good. Engine starts, I'll put it on both for now. We'll wait and do emergency lights after. That logos. Here's another big one on Flight Factor, that not only do they have the pressurization and manual, so you want to switch to auto, but also the cabin rate they have at minimum, so you want to line it up with this little triangle marker here. We'll throw that there. Window heats, we'll wait till we put power on the aircraft. Okay, so I think that is about all there. Everything looks pretty good here. For now, everything good here, down to the pedestal. Everything is good here as well. Alright, so gotta get this forward view back. Alright, so now I think we are ready to put some ground power on the aircraft. Now we do have ground power connected. When we did our quote walk around, we saw the GPU carts out there. So we'll start out with the battery and the standby power into auto. we see that we have external power available, so we'll go ahead and throw that on. That's going to put power on the aircraft. And since we have power on the aircraft, we want to go ahead with the position light. Now, as it's daytime, we don't really need the logo light. If we wanted to throw it on, we could throw it on here, but since it's daytime, we're going to leave that off. So continuing on with our kind of power up flow. Again, now we'll want to, when we close the guard, it's automatically going to snap it from off to armed for the emergency lights. In real life with the flight attendants, we would go ahead and call them up and say, hey, we want to do an emergency light test, and we would turn them on and make sure that they work fine, but we'll go ahead and put them armed. We'll say that that test is complete. Going through here, APU is going to be off for now, so we'll leave that. We only have 8.1 on the fuel, so we definitely have to get some fuel. And where that comes into play is when we come to the passenger signs. We can go ahead and throw no smoking on, but we always leave the passenger signs off when we're refueling the aircraft. So coming back up, we'll go ahead and throw those window heats on. Pressurization is going to be, I'll go ahead and reset this to, I don't know, we'll have to look at the airport elevation for Jacksonville, but it's got to be pretty close to sea level because it's right there on the coast. Seatbelt sign off. Like I said, we're gonna go ahead and do some fueling, and coming on around, I think we can also put that on, and we don't have the APU running right now, so there's nothing to do there. Alright, coming up here, almost forgot. In the overhead panel, we forgot to go up. So the big thing here is we want to get those IRSs aligning, and instead of going to align, we go through to nav, and it'll automatically align. So that's the big one. We want to get those aligning because they do take some time. We can go ahead and also throw on the flight directors for both sides. And I think we're getting a call.
Sir, if I may say so, it seems to be a dash hold in the cabin.
Oh, cool. Okay, we will, well, we've got the cabin heating up or on auto, so it should fix itself there for those guys. Alright, so coming on around, auto throttles, we'll leave them off for now. As we kind of come through and do our thing, we'll go ahead and throw auto brakes into RTO. We can do the caution. We're going to have a lot of ICE-CAS messages as everything is kind of getting set up and going for the flight. Right now we are on VATSIM today as well. So we'll just set 2000 in the transponder for now. I don't think any ATC is on, but that's what we're going to do for now. Next thing we want to do is get into the box because that's kind of the big thing that we need to get set up here. So we want to check out, our nav database is out of date. I forgot to update those, I guess. But that's okay, we'll roll with it today. Like I said, this is our first stream, our first recording, that is. So I do expect a little bit of hiccups in this being a minor one. Alright, so we are 757-200. Usually this would be something we want to get updated, but since we are already setting up for this flight, we're just going to roll with it. Going to our position initialization, we want to put in our reference airport here, which is Atlanta. And basically what we want to do with this is take a look at our GPS position and the airport and see, does it seem somewhere in the realm of possibility before we set the IRS position. So, you know, looking at Atlanta north 3338, north 3338, obviously this is going to be a little off because it's the center point versus where exactly we are in the field. And then west 08425, west 08425. So we know that we're pretty much where we think we are, and our GPS is giving us a good position. So we're going to go ahead and we hit the line select key by it to bring it in the scratch pad, and now we're just going to hit the the one below it to go ahead and set it into our IRS, and then that will basically set the position and get the alignment going. It goes ahead when we go into the route page, brings Atlanta into our scratch pad for the origin. Then we'll go ahead and just put in our destination, which is Jacksonville. Today we are Delta 2720. So we can go ahead and put that in the flight number, DAL 2720. We're not going to be using a company route today. We will manually input our route. We don't need to worry about the runway. That's not really a huge deal. So we can go to next page to get started with our route. And I have it on a separate page, so it's not going to pull up here for you guys, but we'll talk about it. So our route today is the Varsity 3 departure to Noki, then direct Dutchy for the ODA or OHDEA 1 into Jacksonville. So basically we're only going to be putting in 2 fixes that will be the transitions, Noki for the departure transition and then Dutchy for the arrival. And honestly, we don't even have to do that, and you know what we'll actually do. So what we would do if we wanted to do that was we would type them in and drop Noki into the 2 side, and then below it Dutchy, and that would be the direct, which would automatically fill. If we had an airway, we would put the airway in here, you know, Noki, and then another via would be below it. We would put in, you know, QJ whatever, you know, J5 to whatever fix. So we're going, you know, fix via an airway to another fix. So that's kind of how that works, but today we're not going to do that. What we're going to do to fill in our route is instead just go to the arrivals and departures. So we'll start out with our departure, which is going to be Atlanta. We're going to be departing on, honestly, going south today. We should take the south side runways. Oh, these guys are calling us again. What the heck do they want?
Sir, I think you should increase the temperature of the bath.
Oh my gosh. Okay, dude. We'll make it warm. Typical typical flight attendant. Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter what I get. Okay, I see what he's saying. So basically, I'm sitting here going like, why is this guy complaining? It's because we don't have the APU on. So we'll go ahead and give them the APU. So for the APU, usually I think it will automatically, even if you have the pump off, it'll automatically put it on. But I believe it's the left forward pump that supplies fuel to the APU. So we'll go ahead and throw that on. And then we'll go ahead and start up the APU and give them some heat in the back. I guess it is winter time, so we'll be nice and give them some heat. So while that's firing up, we'll go back down and finish what we're doing here. You know what? I tell you what, I'm going to pull up the, let's see, you know what, no, we're going to use 26 left. The RNAV departure will take you anyway, so even if we're going off the north side, flying to the south. So we'll select the runway 26 left, and then the next thing we want to do is look for our departure, which is the Varsity 3. We're going to go down here till we find Varsity 3, and then there's our transition Noki, and we're just going to go to the route, activate, and then execute. So then when we go, we see right here, runway 26 left, Varsity 3 to Varsity, and then the rest of the departure all the way out to Nookie. Now what we're going to do is go back into departure and arrival. So it takes us back to the departures. Well, how do we get to the arrivals? We're going to hit index down here. That's going to take us to the index. So if we blasted out of Atlanta and had an engine failure or something and we needed to return to the field, then that's why we also have an arrival here at Atlanta. So if we need to put something in to get back in, we need to return to the field. But for this instance, you know, we're hoping that we can make it to Jacksonville. So we'll go here and take the arrival into Jacksonville. I'm not really sure what runway we're going to use in Jacksonville. I haven't looked at the weather yet. It doesn't matter. We can always change that once we get going. We'll just select the ILS Yankee to 14 for now. And we're doing the Odia 1 arrival from Dutchy. All right. So something that's important here that we got to remember when we go to route and we execute that, we're not done because we have a discontinuity. And this is what the discontinuity looks like. So to see this, I don't know, because we're not finished with our alignment, I don't know if it will show it on the map. We forget the map is down here. But we're going to try to see if we can look at this. And I want to show you what the discontinuity is and why it's a problem. So you can kind of see, and we'll just bring this up here, and we'll kind of take a look at this as we go along here. So it's this intersection, whatever, it kind of shows you. We'll go to the legs page, and basically what the legs is the route just kind of shows you, hey, it's the departure, it's the arrival, but the legs actually shows you every fix. And it's better for going through, and we use the step button over here. So when we blast off the runway, it's going to give us an intercept, and then go in track into Snuffy, and then on around as we see here. So we'll step through this, and we'll see once we get to Nookie, that's the end of our departure. We have no line to go to Dutchy, and you can see the discontinuity. It looks different between the route page. This is what it looks like on the route page. This is what it looks like on the leg page. All right, now everybody's different. You can fix it on either page. I like to fix it on the legs page because it makes more sense. You can see what you're looking at. So this is easy to fix. You have to just close the discontinuity. So basically, we're going to grab Dutchy here, put it in the scratch pad, and just bring it up and drop it in. And we can see now we have a dash line. Why do we have the dash line? Well, because we haven't executed it yet. It's basically, this is the saying, hey, do you really want to do this? You know, press enter to confirm type thing. So we have here, oh, they're complaining again. Okay, so that looks good. Boom, now we've got it. All right, let's go back and take care of these flight attendants before they lose their mind.
Sir, we are freezing back here. Please do something.
I swear, man, it's just like real flight attendants. All right, there, I did something. Okay, so the APU's up and running. We got APU power, and let's look. Okay, we see the temperature is increasing. So since we're on the APU gen now, we can go ahead and go off of external power before we forget later. We'll end up forgetting later. We'll get busy doing something and forget to. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and release the GPU since we're already on the APU. We'll deal with fuel in a minute. I want to try to get a thought finished here. So let's go ahead and finish up with the CDU stuff. All right, so basically now you want to know, hey, am I finished putting in the flight plan? Well, there's a couple things that we want to check, and I always recommend to check to make sure your flight plan is all the way finished. Okay. And the first thing I recommend is stepping through, and when I say step through, go to the legs page and use the step function to step through, and it will center on every fix so that you can basically follow your route and make sure that there's no breaks or that the magenta line is not going off in some crazy direction. We know that going from Atlanta down to Jacksonville is going to be going to the southeast. So I expect that if north is up, I expect this line to generally be making its way southeast the whole way. So this is our first check to make sure that our route's in and it's good and what we want. So we're going to step through our departure, we're going to blast off and then come back around, and then as we come down, it looks like everything is going good straight into Jacksonville, which is here. And then you say, well, what's this off? This is our missed approach. If we go missed, then it looks like the missed approach, which we'll brief before we get in, is going to be track out to the Craig VOR and then hold off the Craig VOR. Okay, so we don't have discontinuities in our route. This dash line here, you're like, hey, we saw that earlier. I'm pretty sure this is the extended center line. So basically, since we're using runway 14, this is going to be showing you basically final. So if you got off of the GPS and off of autopilot and we're hand flying it out here somewhere, as long as you follow this dash line in, you're going to be going straight for the runway. And the same thing, if you have to go missed and lose an engine or something and need to go straight out, you can just follow the dash line straight out. All right, so that's our first check. We know that as far as the CDU is concerned, we have a good route put in, but is it the route that we want? Well, the second check that we're going to make sure that everything is good is we're going to check our mileage. All right. So the big thing that you want to make sure for the mileage is that you have your IRS initialized. Remember when we went back and we put that GPS position in, because the airplane has to know where it's at to know how far it's got to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our flight plan, which again you guys can't see, but using the SimBrief flight plan, it says for us that we are expecting a route of about 271 nautical miles. Now, it's most likely not going to be exact, but if it's, 10, 20 miles off, okay, we factored in the departure, the arrival, which, might not have been factored into the flight plan there, 100% perfectly. But if, it's supposed to be 271 miles and we go and we see, hey, this thing is saying it's 600 miles, well, now we know we've got a problem. We've done something wrong somewhere. So the way we can go to do that is the prog. I know it's kind of hard to see. We'll zoom in a little bit. Xplane 12. I've got the graphics bumped up, but it is what it is. It's a 757 that we got, and it's not Captain Sim. So we got to do what we got to do. So we hit the prog page here, and then we have all this information. We're like, whoa, what's going on here? Right here, destination. Our destination is, according to our flight plan, 260 nautical miles away. Again, our flight plan says 271. We're showing 260. I'm good with that. That is fairly close. In the scheme of things, we put our departure and arrival and all that kind of stuff in. So I know that my route is now correct because I've looked at it in the legs page and I followed it wrong in the over here on the EFIS on the map, and then I've also checked it by the distance, and that's distance to go. The fuel, this we got to work on because we haven't fueled yet, so this isn't accurate. But this is going to be another thing that we want to look at to make sure that we have enough fuel. This is basically fuel at whatever point. So right now it's just because we're not fueled correctly, it's reading 40.6 everywhere. But basically we're going to be concerned about when we get fueled up what our fuel at the destination looks like. So we'll come back here to this. We still got some things to do. We've got all this other information to put in. But before we do that, we want to get the airplane loaded up. So let's go back. Let's go back over here, pull out our EFB. We'll want to go to ground, and let's look up on my sheet here. Looks like we're taking 179 packs today. 179 packs. And 170. Oh, that's full, but we can't even hold 179. Let's see, cargo weight we'll come back to in a second. Fuel weight, so it's saying our block fuel should be 18.3. So we'll do 18.3. Now I did when I was computing this flight plan, I did put an extra 1,000 pounds of fuel for captain's discretion in there. So I am interested. There's certain everybody that flies in the airlines is used to when they shut down, they're used to seeing a certain amount of fuel, on the panel. In the 777, I'm kind of used to seeing something in the 30s or so. So taking off in an airplane with 18.3 is crazy to me. because like I wouldn't be sweating if I was landing the 777 with 18.3, but I'd definitely be, a little starting to get a little concerned. So I'm interested to see what the fuel over destination is when you're taking off with 18.3. Granted, we're not going very far. This is a very, very short trip for the 757. So the other things that we want to look at now, since our flight plan is based off 179 packs and just a little bit of cargo, the thing that I want to look at now on my flight plan is the zero fuel weight. That's really what's gonna kind of make sure that we're right. And actually, this will still work out pretty good. Our zero fuel weight on the flight plan is 173,700 pounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if I can, put in, I'll just do 8,000 for now. It's weird, it only gives us one. Okay, that's 174, so let's do 7.5. 174, zero fuel weight. Let's do 6.4. 172.9. All right, so the big thing is you don't want to be over your zero fuel weight. It's okay if you're under, but you don't want to be over, because that's basically your flight plan has planned your fuel based on your weight. The heavier you are, the more fuel you use. So if your zero fuel weight is less than what your flight plan says, then generally you're going to be okay. You might have a little extra fuel. If you're heavier, you're going to use more fuel than you thought, and that's when problems can arise. So we're just going to stick with this. Our flight plan says 173.7. We're at 172.9, or really that's 173.0 because we'll round up. So I'm good with that. We'll go ahead and optimize that CG so it'll move that cargo into the forward bin there. We will need to put some of this information in, so actually while we have it out, we can go ahead and do this. Let's fill out this page here. So we don't put in the gross weight. Okay, this should automatically populate from what we put in here plus the fuel. So your zero fuel weight plus your fuel is your gross weight. So let's take our zero fuel weight. We're saying remember, we always round up so that and I mean, you can use the whole like less than 5 round down, more than 5 round up. I do that sometimes, but you're always going to be more conservative if you're telling the airplane you're heavier than you actually are. That gives you extra safety margin. So what we'll do is we'll say 173.0, put that in, and boom, see, it automatically calculates for us. Now for the reserves, when we go to our flight plan, if you use SimBrief and you use the Delta format, it will have a line that says FMS reserve fuel, and this one says 8853. So what that is, again, we'll do the rounding. So 8853 is closer to 8900 than 8800. So we're going to do 8.9 for 8900 and throw that in. And then our cruise altitude today is going to be 33,000 feet, which is crazy. We're going up that high just to come back down. And you'll see we'll only be cruising for just a few minutes probably. And then our cost index, which might be a little harder for some to find, but for us it's going to be at the top of, it's like page 3, yeah, top of page 3, top right. It says cost index, and for us it's 36. So cost index, it's a kind of an arbitrary number. Generally speaking, the higher the number, the faster or less fuel efficient you're going, and the lower the number, the more fuel conservative you are. So 36 would be generally a pretty conservative fuel number. I don't think it's really going to matter that much. Generally, you're talking a few minutes time most. Even over like a 5-hour flight, a cost index of 36 versus 100 might differ in a few minutes. So it's really not a big deal, but companies paying for the gas, we will go ahead and put in what they want. All right, so the next logical thing that we'll need to do is our takeoff ref. Now they don't have on Flight Factor does not have like a, you know, a proper performance calculator. So we're going to kind of leave this alone for a minute. We're going to go and kind of, you know, that's kind of one of the last things we'll set up. So we'll kind of want to look over everything else and see how things are going. I do want to pull up some weather to see what the altimeter setting should be. And I should be using Active Sky. I am not using it today. I have it for Xplane 11. I need to get it for Xplane 12. But I'm showing 3018. So we'll put in 3018. And we'll put in 38. Oh, that's not the one. It's this one. 3018. Now, a way that we can also go and check this is when we go to our Navigraph charts, we'll go into, you go into the 10.9, which is basically the airport diagram on the 10.9, and at the very top, it will tell you the airport, and right under that, it'll tell you the airport elevation. For Atlanta, it's 1026, so 1,026 feet. So we can look, we put in 3018, and lo and behold, we're at 1,020 feet. So within 6 feet of what the reported airport elevation is. So we know that's a good altimeter. So I'm happy with that. All right. Let's see, what else do we need to do? So we'll kind of go through our flows. Let's go back to the overhead panel and check on things there. All right, so our alignment's good. Nothing to change here. We have our APU running. We're going to come down and we have external power off. That's good. Coming on down. Now we come back up to the top and we just, that's kind of how we do it. We go down, go down, go down, go down, go down. And that's basically how we do it. I think Airbus is the opposite. They go up, they go up, they go up, they go up. Of course, that would be an Airbus Boeing thing, but anyway, for us, we're going to be going down and see how we don't have a pressure light on this one because it is using for the APU. We don't need any anti-ice right now. Position lights are on. Everything's good. Okay, so now we have our fuel, right? We fueled the airplane. We're at 40. Wait, 40.5. Is that how much we wanted? Did anything even change here? I want to go back and look at this again just to make sure. Yeah, block fuel was supposed to be 18.3. Oh, you know what? Did I not? Okay. See, and this is where we kind of look at this stuff and see, because I think that I was supposed to hit load. I put in the, yeah, okay. So I put in what we wanted, but what I didn't do is hit load. Oh gosh, I gotta do passenger bus and all that. No passenger bus. Well, I'm not using no stair. I'm using the jetway. Okay. So, fuel truck. All right, Flight Factor, you guys got to change this stuff. And now that I do this, I actually need to go back into my perf init. Fuel truck's there. Okay, it's loading the plane. And you go back and make sure this doesn't mess with my perf init because, oops, that's not it. Perf init. Okay, see, I should have caught this earlier with the fuel when it took to 0. I should have seen the fuel and said, wait a minute, that's not, I only wanted 18.3. But that's okay, it's figuring it out. So actually, instead of fueling the plane, it's defueling the plane, which is fine. Oh, are they calling us again? What do they want now? Okay. Yep. Random flight attendant question. Alright, so basically whenever they get done defueling, then what we'll do is we'll throw the seatbelt signs on, which was why I came back to the overhead panel. Now, something interesting here that we want to, while we're up here, let's go ahead and look. So these, instead of your fuel being on the ICAST there, on the 7576 series, it's up here. You have your left tank, your center tank, and your right tank. So this is a great time to take a look here and see that our center tank, because of our fuel load, will have nothing in it because we're not carrying very much. So when we go to turn on the fuel pumps, we are not going to be using the center pumps today. If we were doing a long range flight, coast to coast or something like that, and we had fuel in the center tank, then when we do our start flow, or before start flow, we would use the center tanks as well. But if we turned on the center tanks, we would get a low pressure light because there's no fuel in it. And I'll even show you right there. You can see you've got a pressure light, right? Because there's no fuel, so there's no fuel pressure. So with no fuel in the center tank, when we go, we'll just go here, here, and here. We also won't use the cross feeds. Just a little tidbit. We'll get to it when we get to it, but we're going to go ahead and let it finish defueling right here and loading, so that while we're on the overhead, we can go ahead and turn the seatbelt sign on, and we'll kind of be complete with the overhead panel until we're ready for pushback and our before start flow. We see that we're getting there pretty quick. We're just waiting to get down to 18.3. One thing I can do while we're waiting on it is go back over to Navigraph. I'm going to go ahead and look at Jacksonville here and take a look and see what the airport elevation is. As I'm sitting there looking around, all right, so it says airport elevation in Jacksonville is 30 feet, so 10 feet would be fine, but we'll go ahead, we'll just throw 30 feet in, so it will properly schedule our pressurization for the flight. Alright, so it looks like we're done here. So our fuel is now correct. We can throw on the seatbelt sign. And I think, and we can also get rid of all this stuff now. Chocks and stairs and all that. Just going to throw this away for a minute. Now we can go ahead and do several things. We can, honestly, since we're all loaded up, everything's pretty much there, we can go ahead and finish out. Alright, another thing that we're not going far enough today for it to matter, but since it's here, we'll go ahead and talk about it because, we want to be educational as well. Step size, the IKO. So basically, as you know, if you're doing, and this is something that you see a lot more with international flights, especially on my airplane, on the 777, you take off with, 180, 200,000 pounds of fuel, you're a little heavy. You can't get up into the higher flight levels. You might have to start out at 30,000 feet, 32,000 feet, and work your way up to a higher flight level. So that's where your steps come in. As you get lighter, then you climb. So you start out your flight, at one altitude. You burn off some fuel, now you're light enough, you can get up a little higher, and you keep stepping up. And so this right here is in calculating for these numbers right here. So we're not, it doesn't really matter today because we are not going on a long flight, but I just like to put 0 in. If I know that I don't plan to do any step climbs, I put 0, so it's not going to figure it in, because generally speaking, it's not always true, but generally speaking, the higher you go, the less fuel you burn. So if, our initial cruising altitude is 33,000 feet and we were going on a longer trip, then if you kept IKO in the step size, it might figure, well, halfway through the flight, you could actually get up to 36 and save some fuel. So it's going to give you an inaccurate fuel number at your fuel over destination, because it's thinking, hey, you can step up to a higher altitude and get your fuel burn down. Well, I don't want to do a step climb. I want to just stay at 33 for the whole flight. So I'm going to put 0 in, and now it's going to factor no climb, that you're just going to fly the whole route at whatever your cruising altitude is listed here. So that's how that works. That's how, it makes absolutely no difference in how short our flight is, because we probably won't spend 10 minutes at our cruising altitude. And this was on run. We should have reset this, I guess. There. All right, so today we're going to do a flaps 5 takeoff. We are pretty light, one on fuel. Well, we're full of people, but we're light still because we're not taking a lot of fuel. So we're looking at takeoff thrust or a D rate. Now, I think we can do a TO1 D rate. Now, I'm not sure. So there's 2 types of D rates. This gets into a whole other thing as well. There's 2 types of D rates. There is a assumed temperature and a just a standard D rate. So and the way that they always kind of taught it was, when you do like a TO1 or a TO2, it's like hanging a new engine on the airplane. It's a D rate. It's a fixed D rate that you can't get extra. It is what it is. It's a set amount. Now, when you do a temperature, an assumed temperature, you're trying to trick the airplane into thinking it's hotter than it is, so it's producing less power. And that goes in, there's a whole nother lesson in there. We're not going to get into it, but generally speaking, on a cold day, you get better performance. On a warm day, you get worse performance. So when you do an assumed temperature of, if it's 6 degrees outside and you do an assumed temperature of 43, well, obviously you're derating or giving worse performance out of that engine. So that's kind of how the D rates work. Now, with my airplane, you can do both assumed temperature and a fixed D rate. I think on the 7.6 it could just be a company policy thing, but I think on the 7.6 it's one or the other, and I would assume so on the 7.5 as well. I don't know. I don't fly these airplanes, so we're just going to do a TO1. We're not going to worry about assumed temperature today. We'll just stick with a fixed D rate TO1. And I don't know the CG, but you can just click it and it'll put in whatever the actual CG is. And the same for the reference speed, since we don't have a proper performance calculator. I guess we gotta turn them on. We can just turn on the reference speeds and then just make them big here. What we'll want to do is take this one to put it up top. But before we do that, we want to also look at our acceleration height. Generally, I like to go with what they call NADP1, which is a noise abatement departure procedure. So basically, you're trying to climb up high real fast to not bug all the people with the noise. So basically what happens is, when you hit acceleration altitude, the airplane pitches over to get speed, and then you start your climb again. So, when you have what they call an NADP2, which is 1,000-foot acceleration height, you hit 1,000 feet, the airplane noses over and tries to pick up speed before it starts climbing. Well, you're at a lower altitude with making more noise, but with an NADP1, you're climbing up to 3,000. You've got an extra 2,000 feet of separation, so it's a little less, I guess, invasive, you might say, of the people around you. The other part of that I don't see in here is the thrust reduction altitude, which NADP1 is acceleration altitude of 3,000, thrust reduction at 1,500 feet, and an engine out acceleration altitude of 1,000 feet. So basically, we're trying to get to 3,000 feet before we start to accelerate, but if we lose an engine on takeoff, we're going to say, hey, we don't care about the noise, we need the speed, and we're going to just, nose over at 1,000 feet to try to pick up speed, because that's critical at that point. Anyway, all that to say, we are done here. The box now, everybody's like, okay, well, this box seems so, intimidating to everybody. But really, it's pretty, once you start to look at it and look at what you're doing in it, it can actually be pretty simplified. And it kind of leads you on the journey that you want to go. So the way I usually do is I kind of do this like zigzag through to make sure that I've hit everything that I want to hit. So like when you go to an initialization reference, it shows that our pre-flight is complete. But even if we wanted to go back to the main menu for the init ref index, we could go all the way back to the beginning, and it's going to lead you through these pages. So you start out at the top, and once it's done, just follow the next. Here's the back button, here's the next button. So we did that, we went next. We did that, we went to our route. We got everything in the route. We did our perf init with our fuel and all that stuff with step size. Then we went and we did our takeoff numbers. We're complete. Now we will come back for the approach. You did see in the index the approach. This isn't important right now. This is a before we start to land thing. So, all right. So when we go back here to init ref, we know we're done there. Along that journey, we were in the route. We know our route's good. We checked it twice, all different ways, so we're good there. The climb page, this just has some climb data for us. It's going to show us things like our cruise altitude. This is our economy speeds for the climb, our speed transition. So basically at 10,000 feet, under 10,000 feet, we'll be at 250. Once we pass 10,000 feet, we can speed up faster. Our transition altitude is 18,000 feet, and any fixes in the climb that we have that have some kind of restriction. So for us, it looks like rivet will be at 250 at 15,531 feet. I don't know, that could change, but anyway, that's just to show you there's nothing that you have to do here. This is just a page of information. Then if you go to next, it actually goes all the way to the cruise page. So this is our economy cruise. Now if we needed to go to long range cruise, we could just hit the long range cruise page and take a look here, and then we can go back. Now this stuff is more important like when we get up in the air, if we're going long distance. Again, these 3 pages are pretty much informational here. In the real airplane, there's some more stuff that can go in, winds aloft, forecast, wind data, all that stuff. When we get into the PMDG 777, we will definitely be taking a look at that, because I know PMDG does the forecast winds and the winds aloft and all that. But for today, these are all informational pages, so there's really nothing to do here. This is a direct to page, so there's nothing that we need to do here. The legs, same thing. We checked our route already with the step. Now, why is in the legs page, why is there no step here? Well, it's because what we have on the map. The map is up. If we went to plan, now we have a step to step through the plan. But since we're getting ready to leave, we're gonna have map on. And while I'm down here, I want to zoom in and put traffic. You see TCAS is off that way. As we leave, we can be zoomed in, and as we get further out, we'll zoom out more. All right, so we're good on the legs page. Departure and arrival, remember we did that when we were setting up the route. Holds, if we were going to do a hold, then we'll get into this page some other time, and we'll do some holds or something, but we're not going to do that today. But there's nothing to set up there. Prague, same thing, we talked about this. Coming back to one, we checked our distance here, but also our fuel over destination. So according to the CDU here, it's figuring that we're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,200 pounds when we get to Jacksonville. We'll actually take a look at that when we get there and see how close we came to it. Also, it talks about how far to the top of the climb. MCP speed, this is what's currently set in the MCP up top, which MCP is mode control panel, in case you didn't know. How we control the plane with the autopilot. We'll be up there in just a second. All right, so all these things we see that and fix is if we wanted fix info, we could put in a fix and it'll give us some data. It's just another data page. So this big scary CDU, we've actually gone through and we've set everything up. And a lot of times if you get lost, you can always just go back to an ITREF index, and it's going to help walk you through. You know you're good. The secret is you know you're good when it says complete. If it says pre-flight complete, you've done everything. You're good. You're right. You're right. Your route might be screwed up, but at least everything you need to actually get off the ground is complete. All right, so we're finished in the CDU. We're going to leave it there because as the pilot flying, generally, we're going to have takeoff ref, and our guy next door will have the legs page up. That's pretty much how we usually work here. We need to get off the ground. We've been hanging out for a long time talking about stuff. So the things that we want to do, though, is one, we want to look, okay, 144 is our V2. It looks like it already set it for us, but that's something important. This is the MCP, the mode control panel. This is how we control our autopilot modes. All these things are modes. All right, and this is the FMA, the flight mode annunciator. These are the most important things when you are flying with the autopilot. All right, this is what you're trying to do. This is what it's doing. So many people get it mixed up and, push a button up here and they're like, oh, what's it doing? What's it doing? The answer is always right here. This is what it's doing. Okay. Anything you do up here, it's great. You can push all the buttons you want up here. It doesn't matter if it's not here because this is telling you what's actually happening. This is what you want. This is what you're getting. All right, we beat that dead horse. So going back to our departure today, we are on a VNAV departure, an RNAV departure. So LNAV and VNAV will be armed. Now, let's talk about this FMA. Guys, sorry, I know our flight's getting pushed back a little bit. We're getting super in the weeds on some of this educational stuff. But hey, hopefully it's helping somebody out. So green is activated, white is armed, okay? So what we have is a blank toga, or TO takeoff, but it's toga, blank toga, toga. So we've got it broken down into essentially 3 sections. This over here is the flight director. That's just telling you the flight director's on. But as far as, how the airplane's being controlled is here, here, and here. Speed, altitude, heading. All right. So right now we don't have the auto throttle on. We're sitting at the gate. There's no auto throttle. It's not being controlled by N1, EPR, none of it. Okay. So there's nothing there. So it's blank, then toga and toga. Well, what does this mean? This means that our vertical mode, I said altitude and heading, but really you could think vertical and lateral mode. Your vertical mode, that's the more proper way to say it. So our vertical mode is takeoff, okay, which we see the pitch bar, and you're like, okay, well, you're supposed to match the two up, make the perfect X and all that. Well, it's basically giving you a pitch bar so that when you rotate the, whatever you want to call it, the Iron Maiden, whatever you want to call it, you pitch the bars up into the magenta line. Okay, that's your pitch cue. All right, so it's in takeoff mode, but VNAV is armed because remember we're on an RNAV departure that has altitudes. It's being calculated by the FMS or the CDU, whatever you want to call it. The flight computer is calculating our vertical path, so it has armed VNAV. So basically, we take off. We're going to hit, 400 feet, I think, 200, 400 feet, something like that. And then you'll see it'll switch from TO, and then VNAV will become active. And that'll then be the active mode. And you'll see it because it'll be green. That means that now you're in VNAV. Same thing with your lateral mode for your initial pit. You're not going to be coming off the ground and as soon as your wheels leave the ground banking into a bank. So for your takeoff mode, your lateral mode takeoff, it wants you to just fly straight until you get to a few hundred feet, and then again LNAV is going to capture. Now the opposite of this would be heading mode. So we could do a heading takeoff where they give us a heading departure. It could be straight out or it could be a turn. So we'd still take off straight out, but then we hit 400 feet and then boom, heading. and then we'd keep going straight out or we'd make a turn. So since we're on an RNAV departure, we want that guidance as soon as possible. So we go ahead and arm these. So we take off with them armed. Okay, this is super important, and this is the biggest thing for people to understand when you're flying airliners, because this is where actually any kind of modern avionics on any aircraft, this is where people get confused and people get lost in the weeds of, you know, the most popular thing we always hear, what's it doing? You know, why is it doing that? And this is why, because they don't understand the difference between the FMA and the MCP. This is what you want it to do. This is what it's doing. If you hit something over here and it's not doing what you want it to do, you need to look at the mode over here, and it will give you the answer that you want, and it'll tell you why it's not doing what you want it to do. All right, we've spent enough time on that. Let's get this airplane off the gate and let's go somewhere. So continuing on, we got like way in the weeds on stuff. Okay, so the other thing, so we already got our V2 is set in the window here. The other thing that we will want is our runway heading, because if we lose an engine on takeoff, it will be super important to fly runway heading. I am never going to take, unless there's like terrain, if there's a mountain in front of us, that's a different story. But if there is nothing out in front of us and I lose an engine on takeoff, or what we call a V1 cut, I'm going straight out every time. I don't care. Like, I don't care. If I lose an engine on takeoff, if there's no mountain or terrain or something bad in front of us, we're going straight out, because now we need to focus on flying the airplane and getting speed. So this, if we remember, this has us kind of going off and then making a curve around. Well, say we get rolling down the runway, we've got LNAV armed. We lose an engine on, you know, after V1, as we're rotating, we lose an engine. It just, boom, it's gone. What I'm going to do is immediately come up here and hit heading select, and then boom, it's going to see how it just changed that into the, now our mode is now heading select. I think I just messed up. Well, I just messed it up. I don't know enough about this airplane to know how to get it back in the TO mode for, I think it's both of them. Hold on just a second here. Yep. Here we go. All right, there you go. So if you need to start over, what you got to do is cycle both flight director switches to get back to blank toga toga. So then we just rearm. But anyway, so basically that's why we set runway heading. Even though it's an RNAV departure, we still want to set runway heading up here, because if something bad happens, we need to just be able to come up and boom, hit the heading select and go off straight ahead. All right. We do not have anybody on VATSIM controlling today, so honestly we can go straight up to our cruise altitude of 33,000 feet. But if we were flying the departure, you know, with ATC online, when we go to the chart, it actually says top altitude is 10,000. But again, there is no ATC, so we are just going to do a straight up to cruising altitude. All right, so coming on down, let's continue our flow here to make sure that our pre-flight is indeed complete. We have auto brakes, RTO, which is rejected takeoff. That means if we get going and something happens and I pull the throttles to idle and engage the reversers, it's automatically going to give us max braking, and our speed brake will also come out. Oh, no. Set that. All right, everything's set there and looking good. Can I get re-up? Okay, and we will go ahead and set 22.8, which is VATSIM's CTAF. I think that's 22.8. I can't really see, but that looks like an 8. Close enough. I can actually look over at my VATSIM. Yep, 22.8. Okay, cool. So we're going to call that good. All right, our pre-flight's complete. I am satisfied with everything here. Now, another thing I want to look up from our, actually it's not on here, it's on here. When we push back, we're going to want to set our trim at 5.1, so we'll take a look at that here in a few minutes. All right, last things before we get going here is we need to get our pushback planned. And since we are going out to 26 left, it'll just be a slight little pushback, something like this.
You're on the cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
All right, I'm satisfied with everything, so we're going to go ahead and go for the push. So first, I'm going to call him and say start pushback, and then make the radio call, and then do the flow.
You're on the cockpit. Tow is driving up.
In Atlanta traffic, Delta 2720 is Echo 28 pushing for 26 left. Alright, so we gave the radio call. Now we want to go up to the overhead and do our before start flow. So that's going to be getting the hydraulic pumps all on. Everything is good here. We want our beacon on. Fuel pumps. Remember, we got no fuel in the center. We got our engine starts on both. And packs off, so we get that bleed air to help spin the engine for engine start. And then we need our out on to get mode C
ready to connect
for our transponder. So we are ready for pushback and start. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I forgot I was even messing with ground handling. Show control widget, or did everything already? Maybe, oh, everything already left. Okay, cool. Oh, but we got some doors open. That could be problematic. We'll probably want to close those. We got talking about all this other stuff, and I left a bunch of doors open, and I guess they will.
Tow connected and bypass been inserted. Release parking brake.
Hold on, bro. We gotta make sure everything's good. Alright, I think. Alright, so I think we're good there. We're gonna come around and make sure the last thing we need to do here is just disconnect the jetway, which we should have done earlier. And it's slowly gonna come out here. Alright, looks like we are good for the push. So we can go ahead now and release the parking brake. And here comes the push.
And you may start engine.
Alright, so we're going to start with engine number 2. We'll go ahead and go to ground. That should get the engine spinning up. Now what we're going to want to do is look at the N2. When N2 rotation gets to the little magenta caret there, right there at 20%, then we'll go ahead and put the fuel control into run. And we're looking for light off. We have light off. We can see it right there. And we also saw the flickering. That means that basically the electrical load is being taken over by the engine generator. N1 rotation continues, and we see that all of our ICAS messages from the right engine are all pretty much gone away. Right, so it looks like engine number 2 has pretty much stabilized, and we have starter cutout. Now it's in auto, so we can leave it in auto because basically if we have a flame out in flight, it'll automatically try to restart. We can go over to 1, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to wait for 20% N2. Right there. Now we can go fuel control switch, and there's light off, we see. And we're still getting our pushback. And we see the flicker again from the engine-driven generator taking over the electrical load from the APU. Generally what we want to do next is kind of just wait for the push to stop, and once the push stops, then we'll set the parking brake and then go through our after start flow. You know, really, if you wanted to, you could go ahead, set flaps, turn off the APU. You could go ahead and do all that stuff. You could even turn on the taxi light. In the real world, obviously, turning on the taxi light while the guys are in front of you is not really what you want to do. They don't tend to appreciate that too much. But for the purposes of the sim, if that's how you want to roll, by all means. For us today, we are just going to do it by waiting for them to finish, which they're just about finished.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
All right, parking brakes are set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
So we would be talking to them on the headsets. You know, parking brake set, you clear to disconnect. And then they would confirm that. They would disconnect the tug, and then the bypass pin for the steering tiller, they would take that out and they would say, you know, tow's disconnected, bypass pin is removed, have a good flight, we'll see you guys next time. And we'll go to hand signals. Well, there you go, disconnect and hand signals. So they'll disconnect and then they'll go out and they'll give you the salute and wave off so that you can get on your way. Alright, it says Alt disagree. I'm pretty sure that that's because we did not set the FOs. I wish they had.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. Well, see you next time and have a safe flight.
Alright, 3018 there. That should go away, and it sure did. Do not see an FMC message. There's no FMC message. Alright, let's see. Alright, so this is close enough, even though they might still kind of be down there somewhere. We're going to pretend like they're not. So the first thing that I'm going to do is set flaps to 5, which I think I can't really see, but I think, oh, that's 1. There we go, there's 5. Alright, and go to the overhead. So when we're doing our scan here, the thing is we want to go APU to off because our generators are taking the load now. We can go ahead and go, yeah, taxi light on, and we can turn this off and our packs can go back on. I think everything else is good there. Go here, everything looks good, and this is where we want to set, remember, our trim to 5.1. So we'll zoom in and we'll set our trim to about right there. Alright, also with them being gone, we can set, we don't want to turn the weather radar on because we'd be blasting them with radar beams. So once they clear out, it's okay, then we can go ahead and set weather. It still doesn't come up until we turn it on here, but that's standard practice to make sure you don't accidentally hit the button and start launching radar beams at people. We leave it in test and then we'll turn on here. And if we're ready to put it on the airplane, we can then hit the button here and it'll put it on. All right, everything looks good. We are ready for taxi. Make the call, and we're going to be coming out 5 north. Actually, this is an uncontrolled area of the ramp, so we're going to go ahead and just start taxiing here. I don't know what it's talking about, the FMC message, because a message would pop. Oh, there it is. Nav data out of date. Yes, I am aware. That's my uh-oh. Okay, there we go. FMC message has been cleared. They definitely got the rocking in the brakes of the 7.5. I was saying that, like, up and down. Might even have a little overkill on it. Alright, so we're going to come up on 5 north here. We'll take Fox 5 to Echo to the end. So when we come up here to spot 5 north, we'll give everyone on VATSIM who's not really here a call and then go from there. Atlanta traffic Delta 2720 is exiting 5 north, going 26 left via Fox 5 and Echo. Alright, so we've given everybody the call, they know what we're doing, and now we are just coming out. No traffic on either side as far as I can see. Got some FPS drop there. I tried to put my settings here on high to give Xplane 12 the best chance it can have. I am running a 2080 Ti, so I'm not like the newest, greatest. Actually, this is Fox. We don't want to go here. We want to take Fox 5 over to Echo and then down. So we'll make a slight left. And we'll enjoy some exteriors. I do like the 7.5. It is a beautiful airplane. And I'm going to tell you too, if my taxiing isn't the greatest right now, I'm actually having to use my Thrustmaster Airbus. I have it on my leg. I'm making some modifications to my sim pit. So I'm flying with the Thrustmaster Boeing yoke and using the twist function on my Airbus, my Thrustmaster Airbus stick as the steering tiller. But I'm making some modifications to my sim pit, and I need to get a spot to mount that on my left side. So it's not the most stable platform ever for controlling the steering tiller. So bear with me while my taxiing may or may not be the greatest. And did I still screw this up? No, we're on Echo. Okay. All right. So everything is good. They made the announcements for the flight attendants to be seated. We're just taxiing to the end. I do like this aircraft. You know, there are things that I do like about Xplane 12. I know that it gets a lot of heat from people. You know, all the graphics aren't as good as Microsoft Flight Sim and whatnot. Yes, but one, it has, I think, some better flight physics, and you know that's not important to some people, but to some people it is. And I tend to like the realistic flight physics. Also, I like the aircraft. I am a huge fan of Flight Factor. I'm really looking forward to their version of the 777 that's coming out as well. And when it comes out, we will take a look at that. I remember at Flight Sim Expo last year, I got to take a look at some of the things they have planned, and it's pretty crazy. You can reconfigure the cab. I mean, you can do some things I haven't seen with other aircraft before. You can reconfigure the cabin. You know, put more first class, less first class, business class. You can reconfigure the seating layout. You can mess with like the, you know, lav water, you know, the blue water or whatever, the potable water. I mean, all these things that you don't see in other simulations. I think Flight Factor with their 777 version 2 that should be coming out sometime, they are planning. So while it might not have the eye candy that you know, PMDG and Microsoft Flight Sim has in theirs, it's certainly going to be a very good add-on. And you know, why pick one? Why not do both? And that's kind of the approach that I'm taking. And you guys will see with this channel, we'll be doing both. We'll be doing tons and tons of Microsoft Flight Sim stuff. I actually have some plans for around the world type, not challenges, but series. Like I want to do an around the world series, and I also want to do an around the US series, and I want to do the Lindbergh flights in real time. And those obviously we'll do on Microsoft Flight Sim. There's some great aircraft over there, from the Cirrus Vision Jet to the A2A Comanche 250. And you know, the Spirit of St. Louis, the Ryan Flyer, whatever the heck that thing's called. So there's some great stuff over there. But you know, Flight Factor and let's not forget FlyJ 727. Until PMDG finally gets around to seeing the light and coming out with 727, I can't even do Xplane 12. I've got to go back to Xplane 11 to go fly the FlyJ 727, which is by far my personal favorite. So anyway, let's get ready for takeoff. We'll come back to talking about random stuff once we get up in the air here. We'll try to keep it rolling. We're going to go, and the thing that I use for this is, I like to say lights, camera, action, or lights, camera, clock, action. So lights, camera would be the transponder. Clock is to run the clock, and we'll talk about why in a few minutes. And then action is the auto throttle or hitting toga. I don't think I have toga mapped on the button.
26 left.
Oh, I better make a call. In Atlanta traffic, Delta 2720 is departing 26 left on the Varsity 3. All right. Now, a lot of times we like to do these super awesome, like hardcore turns.
Runway 26 left.
Our Delta virtual system gives the, I forget what they call that, the runway identifier thing. There's an acronym for it. I just don't remember it. Guys, I am a 777 pilot, but I have been on medical leave for quite a while, so I don't remember everything. I might get things wrong sometimes. Bear with me. I still remember a lot of it, though. All right. Now we are lined up on the runway here. I can go ahead and set my old tiller yoke thing down back on the floor. We're going to bring N1 up a little bit and look for them to climb together. And is there, I don't even know, can I even hit? There we go. And as we see, again, green means activated, so we have EPR activated. So EPR is what's controlling for a TO1. Airspeed is alive. 80 knots is checked. Now we have thrust hold, which means that if I needed to, I could adjust the thrust, but it looks good, so I'm not going to. We're coming up on V1. There's V1. And rotate. We're going to do a nice, steady, and continuous rotation up to the crossbars. Positive rate gear is coming up, and we're just going to climb right into, now we see that we went into LNAV mode. We're just going to follow the crossbars, nice and gentle. It's wanting to pitch for V2 right now until we get to 3,000 feet, which this is a pretty aggressive climb, but it's because we got going fast. When we hit 3,000, which we did, then it should start to, okay, why is it not? There it goes. Okay, so now it hit VNAV speed. So now you hear it scrolling back. That's because it went into climb power, because we can't keep takeoff power forever. It'll overstress the engine. So now it's pitching over. We're going to start to gain some airspeed here. And as we gain some airspeed, then we're just going to bring those flaps up, okay? Now we're in climb 1 right now, which is fine, but say we needed some extra power, like we're just not climbing the way we wanted. The way that we could fix that is to hit climb. So right now we're getting an EPR of 1.26, and sorry, I'm hand flying this while I'm trying to look. Let me just go ahead and throw on the autopilot, and so we can talk about some stuff here. So we got 1.26, we're in climb 1, because remember that's a D rate. All right, so say like, hey, we need a little extra juice. We want a little extra punch. Listen to the sound and look at the changes here. Slight sound, but it would be more noticeable from a climb 2 to a climb, but we get an extra 0.02 of EPR. and we get, you can hear just a little bit more of the whine in the pitch. And then as we go around, it's a big thing. We like to keep the heading bug centered up, because whenever you're flying along at any time, if you are talking to ATC, they could always give you a vector of some sort. And so it's easier to, as soon as they give you a vector, hit heading select and then go left or right as they need. That's 9,000 feet. Are they calling? What are they? Okay, I don't know why they keep calling us about stuff. And honestly, we would be having some words if they called us for something that's not important below 10,000. Yeah, under 10,000 feet, we're in sterile cockpit. So if they call us below 10,000 feet, oh, that's what we forgot to run my turnoffs. If they call us below 10,000 feet, it needs to be because there's an emergency. Calling us for something that's not an emergency below 10,000 feet is kind of a big no-no. I don't know. That's like a flight factor thing. Their little flight factor person is just saying random stuff. And also, we talked about this before, that we started out kind of zoomed in here, but as we take off and we get further out, one of those things is because sometimes when you're low and you're in the airport environment, there's a lot of traffic, and so you want to be zoomed in so you can see exactly where all the traffic is. But as we get further out, we can start to zoom out and see more of our flight plan. I would say that right now, probably about 20, about 40 miles, so 20 and a half. That's probably good enough. There's really nobody out today. They're calling us again. I don't know what he's talking about, the cabin safety routine. I feel like this is a thing. There's probably something that I forgot to do with Flight Factor, and I think I've ran into this before. He's just going to keep calling me the whole flight. I don't know. You can comment in the comments if you know what step that I missed by Flight Factor. There's probably some kind of something that I was supposed to call them, or let's see, is there something down on this panel down here? Was I supposed to call? I don't know. Cap, maybe that's it. I wonder if this is okay. I don't know. We can play with it. I don't know. Yeah, we're gonna see if this gets them settled up or whatever. That we just have them do the safety demo and then take seats for takeoff, and maybe that'll like reset whatever it is, whatever the heck they're talking about. All right, so whatever we had, this rivet, remember we saw that before, that we had the restriction rivet at 250. So now that we've gotten above rivet, we've kind of leveled off here so that we can speed up to our econ climb speed, which is 292. So we're looking for 292 in the box, which would be eventually 0.77877 Mach. We're not quite up into the flight levels to start getting Mach, but for now, 292, and then as we hit it, now you'll see we start to climb over again. 18,000 feet is our transition altitude, so we are going to 2992, and don't forget, since they don't automatically sync together, also want to do it over here to his, is that two? Yep, there it is. Barely see that. PA is still in use, so they must still be given the safety demo. Okay, so apparently that's what I forgot, was to have them do the safety demo and tell them, but I don't know, that is a charts. That's a flight factor thing. So what I want to do now as we continue to climb up here is I want to go and look and see if I can have the FO's altimeter synced to, want to have the FO's altimeter synced to mine, which it doesn't look like there's the option to, unless I'm missing it somewhere, but I don't think so. Options, let's see. Maybe it's in here. There's a blue ICAS. Oh, it just turns it blue. I think now, honestly, we can do that. I don't know. Some settings. Okay, I already saw that one. Advanced sound interaction ops. Is that it? No. Alright, well. Alright, so the PA is no longer in use, and they are no longer bothering us. So maybe that was what. Maybe that is what we forgot. Quick exterior look here. I don't know why the airplane's shaking like that, but that's okay. We'll just stay in the interior here. That is kind of weird that from the exterior that it shakes like it does. Well, guys, that's pretty much what we're going to do for the takeoff portion. We see that our top of climb is coming into view here, and we won't be there long before we get started on the descent. So we've got just a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to get started on our prep for arrival into Jacksonville. Alright guys, we're back, and as you can see, we are not even all the way up, although we are getting close to our top of climb here at 33, which we are leveling off here. We're already pretty close to our top of descent, so what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and get started with our descent planning and everything that we do there. I guess
We have now reached our cruising altitude.
we got that from the ACARs from our Delta Virtual friends over at Delta Virtual. But we also have this cool in-flight PA thing from Flight Factor that apparently they like, so we'll tell them we leveled off. We'll exit out of that for now. Man, look at this wind. We got a wicked crosswind here, 100 knots hitting us right kind of in a quartering tailwind there. Alright, so I have my own little acronym, whatever you want to call it, to get ready for landing or approach to landing. So I do weather, weight, build, bug, brief, and checklist. So some people call it WABBBC, which would be is it W? Weight. Then the A would be ATIS for like weather. Build, bug, brief would be the B's, and then C would be the checklist. So basically, let's talk about these for a second, okay? So the weight, max landing weight is the big thing. Well, I can tell you right now, we are under max landing weight because of the amount of fuel we have. We have so little fuel on board today that our max landing weight is, we're going to be good there. Okay, so that's the weight. The weather, or ATIS, however you want to look at that. I can pull up, and right now in Jacksonville it's showing pretty easy, 8 mile an hour winds from the northeast, temperature 61, altimeter is a big one, 30.1, so 3010. Broken clouds down to about 3,400 feet. We do have a approach controller online right now on VATSIM for Jacksonville approach, so that's good to note. What I'll do is, for that, I'm going to go ahead and put 3010 as a reminder in the standby altimeter. Alright, so we got it there. So we checked our weather, we checked our weight. Now we need to build it, bug it, and brief it, okay? So how do we do that? Well, we already built it, but let's recheck. So 040 at 07, when I pull up, that's the winds in Jacksonville. So when I pull up and see 040, so it looks like the most likely runway would be runway 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to change up our runway here, and this is a good to show that we hit arrival departures, go back to the index, go to Jacksonville and arrivals. We're going to do runway 8 now, and let's take a look at the charts. The ILS Yankee to 8 looks like the way to go. Yep, so we're going to select, let's see what's the high Zulu. We could do either, but we'll go ahead and go with ILS Yankee. So ILS Yankee, we're still doing the same transition and arrival. Now, we don't have to execute yet, because I'm going to show you. Before we executed, then we went and fixed, but let's go ahead and see. We're going to have this all over again. So what we want to do is we have Dutchy, discontinuity Dutchy, because we're on our way to Dutchy right now. Oh, and are we missing our, okay, I see what's going on. So see how it says top of descent, we already missed. So what we want to do then is take what's after Dutchy, the ILTAC, and drop it in that, and that's going to fix it. Okay, now let's wait and see, are we behind, are we ahead? It looks like we might be a little bit behind on the VNAV. See, this is why you really have to take a look when you're Dutchie between 28 and 25. Okay, so we actually do need to start down. So what we're going to do is we're going to back out here, and we're going to just go ahead and set lower. I will fix this in a minute.
We can now commence our descent into our destination.
It's already going to start down. Now I'm going to go look at our approach here. So our charts actually have a lot to kind of dissect with them. So this is where being ahead of the airplane and kind of knowing what's going on and all is pretty important. Drag is required, so we're going to throw some speed brake out to kind of assist us here. I'm going to pull out the... Okay, so we're going all the way down to CDOT. And then we have Libby and Dinks. Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about this in a second. This is how we want it for the approach, but we're going to talk about it in a second. Right now, we just want to get the airplane back where it's supposed to be. So I'm looking at CDOT is the bottom, and on the chart it shows 3,000 feet. So when we're doing an RNAV arrival, we can set the bottom in the airplane as long as it has it all correct in the box. Now here's where we want to verify, right? So I'm looking at the chart that's off screen here, but it shows Dutchie between 28 and 25, which is actually not right in here. So I'm going to do this slash and see if this will kind of fix it. Something happened here. Okay, yep. So this will fix it. And watch how it's gonna fix itself here. So it slowed down that descent. Now it shouldn't really start climbing, but it should now honor that 26. Alright, so now it wants speed. So I'm putting the brakes in. Okay, so Dutchie between 28 and 25, so we're going to give it 26. And this is why it's super, super important to check what's in the box versus what's on the plate. Because now it's showing ITAC at 280, which we see that, but it says between 24 and 19. So we're going to give it 22. Then it says Form B between 13 and 10. So we're going to do 11. And it might be because my nav database is out of date, and these might have been later. So, you know, this is a good example of like why. Now we got ODEA. There's nothing, and there's nothing on the chart. Now Kipple is at 250 between 11 and 7. So for Kipple, we've got the 250. Now we're gonna do 10,500, and I'll do this because it's between 11 and 7, but also it makes sure that we're under 250 before we hit 10,000 feet. And then we're going on down to CDOT. So the next one should be Kitzo. Okay, and at Kitzu we're at 230 between 6 and 5. So what happened to Kit? Oh, there it is. 6 and 5. So we'll do 6,000 at Kitso, and then CDOT we are at 210 and 3,000. And I just want to make this big. Just make sure that it's okay, that it's correct. All right. Now let's talk about this discontinuity here, because remember, in the route we don't want a discontinuity. However, when you're going from arrival to approach, sometimes there is a discontinuity because they don't sync up. It's for a vector. When you get to by the time we get to CDOT, and it even says on the chart at CDOT, it says expect radar vectors to RNAV visual approaches as assigned by ATC. So that's interesting. It's talking about the RNAV, which we could do. or we could do everybody does the ILS, but maybe we should do that because that's what it says. But the question is, do I want to reset it up? No, I really don't. I just got done setting it all up, so we're gonna leave it as is for now, with the ILS Zulu. But we'll probably even get the visual. So we've builting it, and we've kind of bugged it. Part of bugging it too is selecting your flaps. We're gonna go with flaps 30. So we will. Oh, here we go. Okay, there we go. So we put the flaps 30 bug. So it'll be in there when we start to slow down. And then we need to think about other bugs that we need to do. The other bugs that we need to do is setting like frequencies and minimums. So I don't have much experience with this whole VOR DME thing. I don't know. I think that's how they use the. I guess they use that for they use it for ILS too. That would make the most sense, but. It says auto, so since it's in the box, it should, in theory, go to here. So the other thing that we will want is the approach, and we said we're doing ILS Yankee to 8. So we will want to set our minimums, which look like it's going to be a DA of 230. So we'll go down to our little panel down here. This is D8, our DH reference of 200. So DA is decision altitude, DH is decision height. So we're talking MSL versus AGL. Remember, field elevation is 30 feet. So a DA of 230 is going to be 200 feet DH. They're both on there, so we got 200 set. That looks good, and we see it there, DH 200. Our aircraft is working, doing its thing here. Haven't got any notice from Jacksonville yet that, hey, you need to contact me. We're still at 21,000 feet. Probably contact him pretty soon. FMC message, drag required. Alright, so we'll pull out a little bit. Alright, so continuing on, let's keep going through our thing and see kind of where we're at here. Do we need to do anything up here? I think everything looks good up here, so really no changes here. Alright. So let's go back to our thing. We got weather, weight, build, bug, brief, and checklist. Okay, so we did the weather, we did the weight, we built it in the box, and then we bugged it. We did our minimums, and we made sure the altitudes were right. We did the flap speed. Those are our speed bugs and our altitude bugs, all that. And then we need to brief it. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a quick brief because we are already halfway through the arrival, and we got a contact approach here soon. So this is going to be the ILS Yankee, or the visual into Jacksonville, runway 8. IJAX is what we'll be looking for. If we have to manually tune it, it'd be 110.7. Final approach course will be 077 for a DA of 230. Airport and touchdown zone are both 30 feet. MSA for the area is 2,600 feet. If we have to go miss, we're going to climb to 1,000 feet, then do a left turn to 3,000 feet on a heading of 250, outbound the Craig VOR 290 radial to Monia, which is DME of 29.2 from Craig, and hold. And we can see that here. If we go missed, we start the climb, we then start to turn left and keep the climb going at 3,000 feet. Then we go on a 250 heading till we get going back towards the Monia and hold. Alright, but we're not going to do that. We're going to make it in. It will all be good. So we'll call it briefed, and then we can do the checklist. Let's pull out the checklist, and then we'll be done. not charts, checklist. Take off. Okay, descent pressurization is set. Landing is set. Recall. Where do they have the recall here? Is it like over here somewhere? Events. Well, I saw the recall somewhere. Event record. Oh, there it is, right there. Recall. All right, so we have no ICAS messages to recall. Auto brakes set. We're not going to use auto brakes today. I'm not a big fan of auto brakes. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. We'll use medium. Landing data, we set VREF. So we have VREF. Remember, that's part of our bug. So we did VREF 30, 127. So we're going to add 5 to ref for approach speed. So our approach speed will be 132. And approach briefing is complete. Approach, are we below? We are below. So we need to go to 3010 and we need to call up approach. We are getting behind the times here. All right, and nav aids are set. Okay, 127.0. There it is. All right, what we are on the ODIA 1. Jacksonville approach, Delta 2720 is 11,500 descending via the ODIA 1.
Delta 2720, Jacksonville approach, hello, center transporter squawk 3147.
All right, 3147 for Delta 2720. 3, 1, 4, and 7. All right, so we're caught back up here. All right, so a lot of things happening, but that's okay. We got caught up.
No problem. Delta 2720, contact descent via ODIA 1 arrival. Information, Juliet is scan for Jacksonville, expect visual approach runway 8, Jacksonville altimeter 3008.
All right, 3008, and we'll descend via the ODIA 1 for runway 8 visual Delta 2720. All right, guys, so it looks like we got something that we wanted. Now, we are backing up with the ILS, which is just fine, but it looks like we'll be doing the visual to 8, which is great. 8 is great. All right, so we're going to continue down. Now, when we hit 10,500 here, we should be slowing up to 250. We want to keep an eye on that. So even though, okay, so we got Kipple at 10,500 and 250 on the speed. So we definitely want to watch that. We want to, at this point, things are going to happen really, really fast here. So a couple things. All right.
Full stop, and we're parking at the FOB around today, so if we can get a long landing for runway 8, November 7th, Charlie Mike. Okay, number 7.
All right, so VNAV speed is re-engaging. They're saying we need to slow down.
And fast taxi to the Gulf, for Cape and Gulf.
I'm going to give it some speed brake to kind of help out.
Yeah, fast taxi for the FOB, November 7th, Charlie, thanks. Delta Charlie Hotel for the TC available. Our service is terminated for initiation. Advisor is approved here. Delta 720, turn right, heading 170, descent maintain 3000, final.
All right, 170 heading and down to 3,000 for Delta 2720. All right, so basically he's turning us off. He's going ahead and giving us vectors now. So he's turning us off the approach. We're supposed to descend down. So since we can't really do a VNAV path now, we're going to go ahead and go into flight level change. And we want to go ahead and also start slowing down. We're going to do a couple things. We're going to go ahead and get that out. Under 250, we'll go ahead and put in our first notch of flaps.
Preparation
Let's see.
landing.
Overspeed.
All portable electronic devices.
I might have. I don't have
Turn your seat
firm
back.
like notches, so I could have.
Careful now.
Okay, there we go. Alright, so we're on our way down to 3,000, 170 heading. Now what we need to do is go ahead and get this all cleaned up, the box cleaned up. So generally speaking, we would have our, since we're under 10,000 feet, we would have our FO kind of doing this stuff for us. But what we're going to do is take our final approach fix, which is, we'll call it Libby, and bring it up to the top, and then final approach course. So intersection of 077. This will give us a straight out line, and then when we execute, boom, it's going to make a nice, something's working there. So it'll give us a nice extended final there to capture. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in though, because we have a lot going on. Alright, so we're on our way down, and we're at 210. Let's see if we can go. I need to figure out where my flap settings are here. Can I go? Yeah, I should be able to go to flaps 5. That's what I want. Looks like we've got a little bit of wind in these clouds here. So I don't like not being able to see any. So what I'm going to do, okay, cool. It looks like he has us going right to Libby, and so it might not catch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take DINS up, and then the same thing. We're going to take the course, the final approach course, which is 077, and make that the intersect course. And that'll just extend that line out. And now when we turn in, we can go to our next fixed DINS. That just kind of helps us a little bit with what we're doing. Alright, we've got a few more things to do since we're under 10,000 feet. We probably want to get all these lights on. We're back in sterile. Everything else is good here. Now the rest of the airplane is all ready for landing. Alright, we are good. And we're coming down slowly but surely. Alright, I feel good enough now to bring it in to the closest. Alright, so we're at flaps 5, so the next thing that we're going to do once we start to turn in is we'll go ahead and do gear down and flaps to say 20. Now I think what I'll do is start to pull it back to 180. Well, autopilot's really working. I can see the.
Number Sunshine and Mike, welcome back to Jacksonville. Next to the ramp via Golf. The ramp via Golf. Thanks for all the help, November 7, Sunshine and Mike. Thank you for flying Jacksonville. See you next time. See you.
It looks like we got a little rain on the windshield there. I don't think I ever turned on the weather radar. Not that it really matters at this point. Go ahead and drop the gear. So we're still a little, you can kind of see we're above our line here. So to kind of help it out, I'm dropping the gear. Generally, I wouldn't do it this early, but we want to make sure that we get, you know, can get down, and by throwing out more, the more drag we can throw out, the more, you know, the more descent rate we can get to, one, get below the weather, and two, get down to 3,000 so that we can turn in towards the airport.
3720, fuel should be 10 o'clock, approximately 13 miles, report fuel inside.
Alright, and I see the field out here, and you can barely see it. And we've got the field for Delta 2720.
Delta 3720, clear visual approach and wait.
Alright, clear for the visual runway 8 for Delta 2720. Alright guys, so we're cleared for the visual, so we can kind of do our own thing now.
Jacksonville, approach, Cessna, November 354, Golf Tango, on the GA apron, at Gainesville.
Alright, so what we can do is we can keep it coming down a little more and start to turn in. Now 1800 at the outer marker, which is I think around Dens. But we're about to take it off and hand fly it here in a second anyway. We're gonna go full old school because I'm not really sure about the approach mode, and so the auto seems to not be working. So, and we didn't put it in, but that's okay. We don't really need it. We know what we need. We're gonna go ahead and bring us down to 132. Remember, 132 was our disengage. And we're going to disengage this as well. Alright, so we are all old school now. Alright, got the runway out there. So what we're going to do is keep an eye on, well, we're going to not climb. Can go ahead and do that. That'll kind of help us a little bit, because what's going to happen is it's going to recapture. So we have LNAV recapture. That's why it's telling us to turn left, and then the altitude should recapture in a second, and it'll give us some VNAV guidance. But again, we're on the visual, so we don't really need it. We could fly. We can hand fly this all the way in, just fine. The big things that we need to look for is our speed. We need to make sure that we're staying at our approach speed, which is going to be 132. Don't even really need to look down there. Everything that we need to see is outside the cockpit except for our speed. Alright, clear to land runway 8 for Delta 2720. Now, it's not capturing, it's still in altitude hold mode. So you're wondering, you say, hey, well, you put in VNAV, but it's telling you to climb. Why are you climbing? You're clearly high. Well, it's because it thinks that we need to hold the altitude. So it's telling me I need to climb to hold the altitude, when actually I'm above the path. So I actually need to descend.
I'm closing, taxi will be at your own discretion. Monitor Unicom 122.8, see you next time.
Alright, taxi at our discretion. Thanks for the help today. We'll see you next time for Delta 2720. See you. Alright, so as we go down and capture, watch this turn green, and then you'll see this move down. There it is. But for some reason, the VNAV didn't capture, or it didn't show VNAV capture. But it should have. It's not operating. What it was supposed to do is it's supposed to show VNAV capture, and this should have turned green. But again, it's kind of in a weird, mode setting right now, which is fine though, because again, all we want to look at is speed, which we're actually a little fast, and we're a little low, which is fine too. We're one light low. Now we're getting a little slow. Now we're slow and low, which is never good. But we stayed above ref, which is good. So we'll kind of level off here until we see some white again, which it's coming back. There's one. Now a trick about these is what you want to do is when you find a spot that you want, you keep it in the same spot in the windshield and let it just keep getting bigger. So if it's starting to move down, I'm going to get higher. So if I leave my mouse right here and I just make this keep getting bigger in the windshield, but if it moves down in my windshield like it is, then I'm going to end up high, which I am.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Not my best landing ever, but you know what? I'll take it. All right, there we go.
Please remain in your seats until the fasten seatbelt sign is turned on and the aircraft has come to a complete stop. On behalf of everyone at Delta Virtual Airlines, thank you for flying.
Got to pick up my
Forward to seeing you again.
tiller joystick again and go try to find crap. I'm gonna run off the runway. There's really nobody here, so I should. I'm gonna just have to stop. Get off the runway here and have to just stop so that I can. That one's gonna be difficult. All right, so we'll stop here. We'll go ahead and go to Unicom, which is 122.8. 22. All right. And Jacksonville traffic, Delta 2720 is clear of 8 at hotel, taxiing to the ramp via hotel. All right, cool. So we did that. So the things that we want to do after landing here is a few things. One, we want to get the APU on so that we can get APU power so that we are able to shut down the engines when we get to the gate. We also want to redo our lights. We can get the strobes off, get these off, get the runway turn-offs. I don't know why these are so... There we go. All right, get those off. We'll go ahead. Actually, we usually leave this off, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Everything else up here is good. We want to go auto brakes to off. We want to go this to out on, and start bringing up these and bring up those. All right. Cool. So we can head to the gate. And we can also turn off the flight directors. Guys, it wasn't my best landing ever. Got a little high there at the end. Got a little low and slow for a second. Got a little high at the end. Got a little rushed on the arrival. But again, you know, we're doing such a short, it really was such a short flight that can just show you when you're doing a short flight like that in a complex aircraft, stay ahead of the airplane. Plan early. Start planning that descent while you're still climbing out. We hadn't even leveled off yet when we started going over things for the arrival, and we still got a little behind the airplane. So that's one of the things that you want to think about ahead of time, is how much time you're going to have to plan out that arrival and how complex it's going to be and what you're going to do, and then get that all situated. So I want to thank everybody for being with us today. If you stick around, we've got a few more things to talk about as we get the airplane taxied in, shut down. One being, hey, the APU, you know, it's up and running, which I think we can see on here. Is it on here? Oh, the EGT. Okay, so the APU never started up. That's good to know. Okay, so that should have started up, but yeah. All right, and I can see there the RPM is climbing, so my APU is starting up. I'll text to one of these other spots just to make it interesting. Usually get on the ramp, especially in the daytime. You don't want to blind the people that are. You don't want to blind the rampers. So I guess we'll do. Honestly, we should not. We should have stayed on the line over there, but that guy. So we'll turn here. I'm not really sure where Delta parks in Jacksonville, but we're gonna come and we'll go to this gate right here. All right, so we have our APU is up and online now, and usually we want to give it a minute before we connect the air, just so that the exhaust, you don't get that like burning exhaust kind of smell. So once it's been on for a minute, then we can go ahead and put it on. I'll go to an external view for the parking, just since we haven't really done a lot of external view. We didn't get that line up perfect, so we'll go a little bit to the right and then come back on center line. And this will be good enough since it's kind of by the door here. All right, we'll go ahead and stop there. So once we get stopped, we can put on the parking brake and double check that our APU is up and running, which it is. We can go ahead and bring the engines down. Now we'll want to go to the overhead panel to kind of do our shutdown flow. So remember, engines stay on, but the electrics all come off. Leave all this on. We're going to shut off these, leave this one on, and we can leave all this on right now because we're using APU. We can turn that off. We already have those off. Those are off. Now we can come here. We already have our flight directors off. We can now go to standby, and we can put the weather back in the test. And guys, I think that's it. Welcome to Jacksonville. I want to thank everybody again for sticking with us. I know that we got a little long-winded on a couple different things today, but it was a good flight. We learned. Hopefully, you learned a lot. We went over quite a few things, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and we'll get to them and we'll talk about it. You know, tell us what you like, what you don't like. Tell us what you want to see, what kind of content you want us to make. We'll definitely get to it, and you know, we'll do a variety of things from GA flying, airline flying. We might even throw some DCS in there from time to time. So yeah, comment below. We would appreciate it if you like and subscribe. And thanks again for sticking with us today, and we'll see you guys next time.